Most of the candidates are going to be here after the meeting, so you can sign petitions after the meeting. But please make sure that there's a number of state house candidates here. Make sure you're in their district before you sign it, because if you sign and you're not in your district, they can cross that out. We also have senator tables over here, but the senator candidate representatives have been walking around trying to get signatures. We also have Frank Pinto back here. His son is here. Tory, right? All right. Tory's back there. Frank Pinto's running for Auditor General. He's going up against an endorsed candidate that Tom Corbett endorsed and the state committee endorsed. So he has a long hill to climb. And I want to get him like 100 signatures tonight. So if you could sign his, anybody in your county can sign the Auditor General. We also have Ted Waga back here and representatives for Chris Riley. So thank you. Thank you for coming. And I'd like to take this opportunity to say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You can be seated. Now I'd like to introduce Marilyn Gillespie. She's going to say her prayer.
Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we praise you. We thank you for who you are. We thank you for all the blessings you give us. We thank you for this time to be here and share. We thank you that you have raised us up for such a time as this. Lord, we ask you to give us the wisdom and the guidance that we need to elect a proper president and other officials in all the offices in the state. And we thank you for who you are, and we thank you that we have the time, that we are called to do this. And help us to bring you honor and glory in all we say or do. In Jesus' name, amen.
As always, we have an exciting meeting tonight. We have a lot of candidates here. We have David Baldinger here. He's going to be talking about eliminating the property tax and the efforts that he's done and where they're going and where they've been. Then we're going to have the candidates come up. All the individual candidates that are running, that are here, are going to come up and say a few minutes about why they're running and some of the things they would like to change. And I also want to... I didn't bring that bumper sticker up to me. I imagine everyone heard 2 weeks ago that our Congressman Platts is stepping down from his position. And I want to thank all you for the help that you helped us with on this. It's amazing how 100 bumper stickers can make an effect on the electorate. But I want to thank Mr. Platts for his service and wish him well in his future endeavors, which will not be in the U.S. Congress anymore, thank goodness. I also wanted to tell you a little bit about what happened at State Committee this last weekend. As you might know, Tom Corbett endorsed for Senate, Attorney General, Auditor General, and Treasurer. He's the first sitting governor that came out and endorsed candidates before a state committee meeting. And he kind of threw his weight around at the state committee, and he's quote unquote the leader of our party in Pennsylvania. I'm not real thrilled with Tom Corbett. I wasn't real thrilled after he took office, and I have not been real thrilled because of his inaction on right to work and PLAs and things of that nature. But then for him to come out and endorse candidates before the state committee and before the primary, I think is appalling. So what we did was, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but our group paid for a block of 40 ads to run on WHP 10 days before WHP 580 up in Harrisburg to run ads against endorsement process, and we ran those ads right before the state committee meeting. We also made robocalls to the state committee members, and we sent emails to the state committee members. Leanne, my wife, was on Bob Durgan's show twice for an hour each time. against endorsements. And we went up to the meeting this last weekend, and Beth was there, I was there, Marilyn Gillespie was there, and a bunch of other people from York. And the meeting started, the Central Caucus meeting was at 7:30 in the morning, and all the caucuses meet separately before the general meeting at 9:30. And the Central Caucus is the largest caucus in the state, which we're members of. It goes from the Maryland line up to the New York state line, and it basically encompasses all the middle part of the state, and it's the most conservative caucus, and it's the largest. So there's about 113, 120 members of the Central Caucus. And Dick Stewart, for all his flaws, he does let us converse about how we feel about voting, and he lets people, we have a discourse about things. And it's a closed meeting. We got in the meeting, we started talking about, a lot of people stood up for no endorsements. I was one of them, and I mentioned that we shouldn't be putting Republican money against other Republicans before the primary. Let the voters choose their candidates and their nominees, and then put all the Republican money against the Democrats in the fall. At that, Dick Stewart said to me, well, Scott, I understood that you had a Senate forum, and on your agenda in your forum you had candidates listed, and isn't that an endorsement? And I said, no, Dick, that's not an endorsement. We're trying to get these people's names out there because they don't have any name recognition and they don't have any money from the parties. So we actually were called out a number of times, but a gentleman was standing speaking against endorsements, and the door opens up and 10 people come marching in. One of them was Governor Corbett, one was Lieutenant Governor Cawley, and there were about 3 or 4 bodyguards with him and some other people. And it's almost like the Dick Stewart and the leaders of the caucus were almost bowing to Governor Corbett's entrance. But he got up and he began to tell us that we were voted by your constituents to vet the candidates and pick the best candidate for the voters. And he said, your leaders do your job. Well, I respectfully disagree with that. I think that the state committee members' job is to vet the candidates, tell your constituents about who the candidates are and what they stand for, and let them make their decision as to who to choose. So Corbett was in, he left, and we actually voted, Central Caucus voted not to endorse, which was really, it didn't hold any water really in the general meeting. It's just symbolic that we voted not to endorse. Then we got to the general meeting, and we heard rumors that the Southeast Caucus, which is the most moderate, I'm searching for a word, moderate caucus, and they generally vote in blocks. And actually, the gentleman that's the chair of the Southeast Caucus, they don't allow discussion in their caucus, and it's before the meetings actually happen, they know who they're going to vote for, and everybody toes the line. And that's basically what happened at the state committee meeting. We got up and said our pieces, said what we had to say, but when the endorsement vote came down, they voted 201 to 140 to endorse. Now, this is a bad thing, but there's a silver lining to the cloud, because last year we voted to not endorse. There was only 90 votes not to endorse, so we picked up 50 votes in that. But they voted to endorse. They rubber stamped Governor Corbett's selections, and now all the state money, the Republican money, goes towards those candidates, which is it was foolish, and it's appalling, because they actually endorsed a Senate candidate that is very moderate. And I read an article that it's a Dem against a Dem. So it's Casey or Casey Light. Unfortunately, we're trying to do what we can do, but unfortunately, it's a long haul. So we also, on our website, I want to let you know that on our website, we took notes as to who was voting to endorse and who voted and who they voted for to endorse, and that's on our website. So we have all the state committee members, and we're going to release a press release, and we might put ads out on the radio to let the other state committee, the other people in the state know who their state committee voted for, so they can get pressure. The only way we're going to change this is to get more people into the state committee that are conservative. York County, all 12 representatives of York County voted not to endorse. The leader of the chair of the York County Committee, Bob Wilson, was mysteriously missing at the endorsement vote, which was very strange. And he abstained from selecting any candidate. The other thing with Bob Wilson is that, I have to let you know this, Bob Wilson's a new county chair. He took over for Peck Foster. Peck had his flaws, and I had a lot of issues with Peck, but you basically knew where Peck stood. Bob Wilson, during the Central Caucus meeting, he did not raise his hand for any votes. He didn't raise his hand to endorse. He didn't raise his hand not to endorse. He didn't raise his hand to pick one candidate. He didn't raise his hand to pick another candidate. I have real issues with that because it shows no backbone, and I think he's trying to ingratiate himself to leadership, and that's what it's all about in the PA GOP is leadership. I mean, if the leadership is on your side, you can go far and you have a lot of money, but if the leadership's against you, then you got a struggle. So please sign Frank's petition, sign the Senate candidates' petitions also. Get them on the ballot because it's a long road to hoe. So anyway, Marilyn has something to say, and then Beth has something to say afterwards.
Well, I'd just like to tell everyone that I went to the Republican Club meeting this Monday in York, and Chairman Wilson was there and he spoke, and he said that he was very disgusted with actions of some members at the state committee and that he didn't appreciate outbursts when people were speaking to the state committee. And in the Central Caucus also, he said, when people yell out while the governor is speaking, the governor will never forget what county they're from. And whenever we want something from the governor, he'll remember who spoke out in a nasty way against him. And so he said he will not put up with this. I don't know what he can do or plans to do, but he said he won't put up with it. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, and I need to add my 2 cents about the state committee meeting. The vice chairwoman of the state committee, Joyce Haas, we had asked people across the state, a lot of Tea Party groups had asked people to contact the committee members and ask them not to endorse, so they sent emails and phone calls. She said she finds this offensive. So the people's voice to her is offensive. Anyway, that's not why I'm up here. I am up here to talk about the York Rescue Mission and our soldier. For the foreseeable future, we will be collecting items on behalf of the York Rescue Mission. I know, as many of you think like I do, that the government's role is not charity, but it is our role to take care of our own communities. This month, we were collecting baby items for their women and children's emergency shelter. Next month, we are going to collect hygiene items, shampoo, soap, things like this. So please come, please bring something when you come. We are also sponsoring a soldier, Manny Veras. He is in Afghanistan, and it's important that we let him know as frequently as possible that we appreciate his sacrifice. So please, thank you for those of you who have contributed, and please continue to contribute in the future.
Thank you, Beth. Hey, I did not know that Marilyn was going to say that, but that really burns me up because I don't know who Bob Wilson thinks he is, but he has no control over what we do. Bob is a person that was appointed by Peck, who ran 2 years ago, who knew he was going to step down, and then he ran so he could get that position and appointed to Bob Wilson. I didn't know who Bob Wilson was before he took the position. I really don't know who he is now. I've never talked to him. He's never called me. He's never contacted any of us. The York County GOP has never been in contact with us. They very rarely come to our meetings. They push us aside. They'll see who they're pushing after a little bit. So it just angers me that that's the case. And the thing is, when people were jumping and hollering, my wife, Leanne, she was there also. What they were hooping and hollering about, I think most was the endorsement vote. Because after they voted to endorse 201 to 140, all these sheeple got up and started, cheering for their votes. So, I'm a little bit angry about that. But it takes a squeaky wheel to get the oil. So, right now, I'd like to introduce David Baldinger. David's very excited to be here. He wants to explain what his organization is doing, and I'm going to cede the floor to David right now.
So, how many of you are happy with property taxes? Okay, let's put it the other way. How many of you are unhappy with your property taxes? Thank you. That's what I was expecting. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. I actually wear two hats in coming here. The PTCC is the Pennsylvania Taxpayers Cyber Coalition, and that is my group. It's a web and email-based group for those who have no local group like this to represent them. The PCTA is 65 diverse taxpayer organizations from across the state, united in a single cause and fully in agreement with a single plan for school property tax elimination. See, Carol Tignall's here tonight from our Dallastown group, and we have an announcement too. We're no longer 65 groups. As of tonight, Scott told me that the York 912 Patriots are going to join with us, so we're 66. So a big hand for the York 912 Patriots. I thoroughly believe you can't come up with a solution to a problem unless you know what the problem is. And I also believe that many members of our legislature have no clue about the property tax problem. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but I'm going to start you off with a few numbers. Anybody have any idea what those numbers mean? $24 billion is the current total cost of education in Pennsylvania. 6.25% is the average annual increase in the cost of education. If you use that as a constant and extend it out 10 years, you'll find that the cost of education balloons to $44 billion in Pennsylvania. This is unsustainable, and it must stop now. I generally try to get a feel for what's going on, and I always pay my school property taxes on the last day of the rebate period, because we have a very friendly tax collector who is willing to talk with me and tell me what's going on. She said, first of all, the revenues were down this year on August 30th compared to last year, mostly because of assessment appeals. She said people complained to her about having to take out reverse mortgages just to pay their taxes. To me, this is absolutely unconscionable. You work your entire life to build some security, pay for a home, think you're going to live there forever, and you have to reverse mortgage it just to pay your rent to the government? She said also this year, more people are using the payment plan than ever before, where they can split the payments out over 4 payments in the year. Anybody have an idea about that number? That's how much your property taxes can increase over the next 2 or 3 years because of the pension spike that's coming down the line and the underpayment to the pension fund and the stock market pullback. Besides that, we have reduced basic education subsidy, which is also hitting the local taxes hard. I don't know how many of you can sustain a 30% property tax increase. I know it's going to be difficult for us, and I'm sure it will be for some of you too. We could see that anywhere the next 2 or 3 years. Finally, that number. I'm going to show you an exhibit first, and unfortunately, I lost my main exhibit. I couldn't find it tonight. It's either at home or the last time I spoke. This is 1 page of 4 from the Reading Eagle from last July. Let's see the fine print on it. There were 4 more like that, and I have one here from Schuylkill County. It's very similar. I know you had one here in York County. Joel Sears of our York County group sent it to me. These are all tax sales. The Berks County list was just under 1,100 homes being sold in July because of non-payment of property taxes. This is not foreclosures, strictly property tax sales. The 10,000 number is the approximate number of homes in Pennsylvania that are seized each year for property tax sales. 10,000 people put out of their homes. And if you want to see something really revealing, go to the PTCC website and read the letter I received from a deputy sheriff who was responsible for going out and evicting people from their homes. It's a brutal process and something that should never happen to citizens. This doesn't account for the people who sell their homes, try to get rid of them just before they're taken for property taxes. That way, at least they don't lose the equity in their homes. We have no idea what that number is. But in total, at least that many each year. We're going to talk about education finance reform because that's really the problem. It's not the property tax. First of all, the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and our office holders are sworn to uphold the Constitution, guarantees that we'll be secure in our property. Yet the same politicians who took this oath will allow this travesty to continue and allow homes to be seized for non-payment of property taxes in violation of the Constitution. We have a lot of people like that in Harrisburg, and we're going to talk about them tonight too. First myth, property taxes are the problem. No, property taxes are only a symptom of a bigger problem. Property taxes started in feudal England in the 1200s, 1100s, at a time when only landowners had any money. The serfs certainly didn't, so they were the ones who paid the taxes. We imported this into the United States and started in Pennsylvania in the early 1800s with the idea at the time that you weren't required to report your income to anyone. So they tried to judge your income, since we were an agrarian society, by how much land you held and farmed. A farmer who was farming 40 acres was assumed to be making less money than a farmer who farmed 80 acres, and he was taxed accordingly. We've dragged this taxation system on into the 21st century with the notion that somehow our property generates income. Our property no longer generates income. We live in our property. How can you equate what was going on in the early 1800s with what's going on today? To use this taxation method for any reason is totally unreasonable. The other problem with the property tax system is that it doesn't account for a person's ability to pay. This is a basic tenet of all taxation. It should account for a person's ability to pay that tax, and the property tax has no relationship whatsoever to that. I've heard the argument that, yes, well, somebody who's making more will buy a larger home. Okay, fine. Maybe that works, but what happens when you retire and your income drops drastically? How does the size or the square footage of your home or the size of your property have any relationship whatsoever to your income? Yet you're taxed on that house. There's also been suggestions to rework the assessment system. Well, we've seen what happens with the assessment system. I'll give you an example right in Berks County. We assessed in 1992. We live in a cookie-cutter development. Typical house, same square footage, same lot size. Somehow our neighbor's house was assessed at $35,000 less than ours. We appealed the assessment, eventually got $10,000 knocked off, but that wasn't the point. We had to hire an appraiser to give us an appraisal on the house, had to hire an attorney to represent us at the assessment appeal. We had to prove to the government that our house wasn't worth what they said it was worth just to get a reduction in our taxes. Yet the politicians still talk about reforming the assessment system. On average, it costs $10 million per county for a county-wide reassessment. Go back 2 years to Judge Stanton Weddick in Allegheny County, who ruled at that time that the property tax assessment system in Pennsylvania, the base year system, is unfair. It's inequitable because it goes on too long without a reassessment, the property values get out of whack, and people are taxed unfairly. The result of this was, and if it comes to pass, is that we're going to be looking at county-wide reassessments every 2, 3, 4 years, just to try to keep values fair, at $10 million per county every 3 or 4 years. We're going to throw more money at this to try to fix a system that can't be fixed. I'll give you an example from Monroe County. I gave this talk about a week and a half ago in Stroudsburg, Monroe County in the Poconos. They have a terrible problem up there. I saw a real estate sheet for a house that's for sale for $200,000, which is the median home sale price in Pennsylvania right now. Property tax on that $200,000 property was over $10,000 a year. That's 5% of the value of the house. It's a 5% sales tax on your house every year. You will have paid off that house in 20 years in sales taxes while the mortgage goes on for another 10. Their housing market is in the flusher. They can't give houses away up there. Nobody wants to buy them with that kind of tax load, and even worse, knowing that it's only going to go up in the future. I don't like to knock school boards, and this the out-of-control spending bill. And I don't like to knock school boards because I think it's a thankless job, and in a lot of cases, you have sincere people who are trying to do their best. But I've seen the other side of it too. Before school board elections last year, the Reading newspaper listed all the candidates and gave some background on them. I was astonished by the amount of cross-pollination, where you have the wife of a teacher on the school board in that district, or a retired educator on the school board, or helicopter parents who want to make sure the school board does exactly what they want them to do for their children. A lot of school board members have agendas that do not necessarily fit in with the thinking of the taxpayers. And this is part of the reason why spending is out of control. School boards were given the right in 1947 to levy property taxes. Before that time, schooling was paid by the state. It was only in 47 when they got this right, but at the same time, they put no limits on how much the school boards can tax, and you've seen what's happened since 1947. It'd make it even worse, in 1965, they repealed that bill, immediately reinstated it, along with 10 new taxes, like the per capita tax, the privilege to work tax, the earned income tax, the real estate transfer tax. It was a basket of 10 taxes. The school boards have used most of them in sometimes a race with other schools to see who has the best gymnasium, the best football field. It's out of control and it's got to be stopped. I'll give you one more example here of education and taxation inequities. Berwick School District in Columbia County has lost about 900 students in the past 10 years. In the meantime, they've managed to hire 40 new teachers. And it has everything to do with the current 1991 funding formula. The funding formula from the state holds all school districts harmless, meaning they will get the same relative amount of funding in perpetuity no matter what happens to the population of their school district. The Berwick School District is absolutely awash in money. The tax load on their folks for their school district is 40% of the school district's budget. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with York Suburban. We know what's happened there. Any of you from York Suburban School District? 89% of your school district's budget is paid by local property taxes, compared with 40% in Columbia County in the Berwick School District. What is fair about that? We're supposed to have equal levels of taxation for everyone? It somehow doesn't work out that way. What are the real problems? In short, an irreparably broken K-12 public education finance system. Okay, let's get on to what you can do about it. Property tax relief or property tax reform is the solution. How many times have you heard that? How many of you are happy with the rebates you've gotten from Act 1 gambling? Governor Rendell told us this was going to be the solution. Everybody was going to receive at least a 50% reduction in their property taxes. I'm sorry, Act 1 had nothing to do with property tax relief. It had everything to do with legitimizing gambling and paying back the special interests who gave a lot of campaign funding to Rendell and his cronies. The property tax relief was nothing more than an excuse to get that passed. Go ahead, Janice. So what's wrong with relief? Well, let's start with Act 50, Act 72, and Act 1. Act 50, Act 72, and Act 1 all called for a local tax shift, meaning a shift away from local property taxes to an earned income tax. With Act 50 and Act 72, the school boards were given the decision whether or not to do it. It was soundly rejected. We get to 2006 and Act 1, and Governor Rendell was not going to hear about this anymore, so he made it mandatory, and you may remember the referendum in 2007 on whether or not school districts wanted to shift partially to a local earned income tax. 501 school districts in the state at that time. Of 501 school districts, 496 rejected the local tax shift proposal. Governor Rendell said the people were stupid for doing it. Well, I'm sorry, Governor Rendell, it wasn't a case of stupidity. The people understood, yes, you can shift away from property taxes to a local earned income tax for a while, but property taxes keep going up. Eventually, you're right back to where you were before with a brand new tax to pay. People understood that, and that's why they shot it down. But worse, the Senate Majority Leader, Dominic Pileggi from Delaware County, said, this just proves that people prefer property taxes. The former HB 1600 tax shift, this was another one that was dreamed up. Let me back up for just a second. Regarding the local tax shift, I think it was introduced in the House of Representatives today. If not, it will be in the next day or two. Another tax shift bill on the local level. You get a chance once again to shift to a local earned income tax, or even better, a local sales tax. I don't know how you administer that over 67 counties, if some counties vote for it and some don't, but it's the same principle. Why would you want to shift part of the property taxes away to another tax when eventually they're going to go right back up and you're going to be in the same boat with more taxes to pay? You're going to see it introduced very shortly. I'm only going to say this: pay attention to when it's introduced, pay attention to who is introducing it. That's all I'm going to say at this point, because I don't want to get too political here, but you'll be very surprised. Homestead exclusion. This is another trick the politicians tried to play on us. Homestead exclusion says that you can exempt up to 50% of the median value of a property in each school district from taxation. The only thing was, they never enacted any enabling legislation to make this happen. But even worse, even if they had, think about the formula for a second. Exclude 50% of the property value. So let's say the median value in a school district is $100,000. That means 50% of that's going to be exempt. Well, how about somebody whose home is only assessed at $50,000? They're not going to pay any more taxes. But heaven forbid if you own the home that's assessed at $300,000, because you're going to be taking the burden. It's a redistribution of wealth, which is against everything conservatives stand for. But still, the homestead exclusion is the preferred vehicle for trying to give us property tax relief. Already mentioned about relief being outstripped, and any property tax relief plan is doomed to failure as long as the system isn't restructured. That's our mantra. No relief, no reform, no reduction. We don't want to hear those words. They're fake words that mean nothing. And the politicians who try to push this off on you are being disingenuous. Replace the property tax with a fairer tax and get this done right. This guy's been waiting around for 30 years. And for 30 years, we have been told by the legislators that property taxes are a complex problem that's not easily resolved. I'm sorry, it's nothing more than a whiny excuse for them not taking effective action, and it's totally untrue. They need the courage and the political will to do what needs to be done and for what is right for the taxpayers who elected them. And they refuse to do it because they kowtow to the special interests or their leadership who opposes it. I'm sorry, it's not a complex problem. Legislators have said to us that taxpayers will not accept such massive change. Well, I'll tell you a quick story. Twice in 6 weeks, Representative Rick Saccone from Allegheny County invited me into his district to give this presentation. As each person walked in the door, he gave them a little carnival ticket. He said, "I'll tell you what to do with it later." I gave the presentation. When I was finished, Rick said, "Now I'm going to have 2 buckets by the exit. One's marked agree, one's marked disagree. I want you to drop the ticket in the appropriate bucket based on what you've heard tonight." Both presentations, 6 weeks apart, different audience, not one ticket in the disagree bucket, not one. Yet the politicians say, we're not going to accept it. The taxpayers will never accept this. What we will accept is a total shift to a different kind of taxation as long as the taxes that we're replacing are totally eliminated. And that's what we've heard time and time again. So now's the time for change. And why? Well, rising homeowner discontent. All you folks seem to be unhappy tonight. We've seen it all over the state. We know it all over the state. Letters to the editor, editorials. The email I just get a tremendous amount of email from people either complaining or telling me they're going to be pushed out of their homes. They're desperate. They're looking for a solution. Act 50, Act 72, and Act 1 I talked about. Last time Quinnipiac Polling Institute is from Massachusetts. They regularly run polls in Pennsylvania. Last time they polled on property taxes was in 2008. And at that time, 89% of Pennsylvanians polled said property taxes were the #1 issue that had to be dealt with. Yet since 2008, the legislature has done nothing. Rick Saccone told me when I was out there that he knocked on every door in his district when he was running. Rick won in the 39th. He's a great guy. The 39th district used to belong to David Baldinger, probably one of the most far-left legislators in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. Good to see him defeated after 26 years in that seat. But Rick said that he knocked on every door in the district. By far, the people told him, do something about property taxes, we're getting killed. I already talked about Stanton Wennick at the Allegheny County base year ruling. Pressure from taxpayers groups and the media, it's been building. In January, the PCTA was 38 groups. We are now 66. Again, thank you, Scott. We are now 66 and have been putting pressure on the legislators pretty hard. I guess some of you may have seen the letter in the York Daily Record last week from Ron Miller, who said that he hasn't been able to get any information on the bill. Well, I'm sorry. Jim Cox, the prime sponsor of the bill, has invited all of the House to come to his office. He said, I'll sit down with you and go over the bill line by line if you want to. He hasn't released it yet because the Legislative Reference Bureau has not completed the language. They keep screwing it up somehow. But the door is open any time they want to find out about it. These are the kind of excuses we're hearing all the time. Oh, Adams County, let's see, Cumberland, Adams, Perry, Dauphin, Luzerne County have all undergone reassessments in the past 3 years. Everyone's been screwed up. Allegheny's the worst. Take a look in the newspaper once in a while, see what's going on in Allegheny County. The people are up in arms. Go ahead, Janice. Finally, every year, the American Legislative Exchange Council issues what it calls its Rich States, Poor States report. It's a summary of economic indicators for each state. 2011, Rich States, Poor States gave Pennsylvania 43rd in economic competitiveness, 46th in economic performance, 41st in outmigration. Anthony Davies is a professor of economics at Duquesne University. He did an analysis of this. He said, the outmigration problem is a symptom of increasing property taxes, which, along with income taxes, affects where young college graduates move and live. He said they can go anywhere they want. So, of course, the states that attract them on average are the states with lower property taxes. What this means is property taxes, I was told that I'm nothing more than a whiny blue hair. Of course, I don't know how they tell anymore, but I'm nothing more than a whiny blue hair complaining about high property taxes. They think that's what this is all about. This is what it's all about. We're killing Pennsylvania's economy. We're driving away its residents because of an unfair method of taxation that nobody wants to put up with anymore. Go ahead, Janice. Solution to this, replace the school property tax with a more broad-based and equitable funding stream. We've been trying this since 2004, when I first started working with Sam Rohrer on this. In 2007, I believe it was, Governor Rendell said, we've got to keep the property tax because it makes homeowners more responsible. I've never been able to understand that, and if any of you can explain it to me, I'd like to hear it. So, what's the solution? This bill is the proposal supported by the 66 grassroots taxpayer groups, House Bill 1776, the Property Tax Independence Act. I'm going to tell you a little about it now. First of all, accepted wisdom says that the property tax is the most stable tax. And this is a reason why we shouldn't shift away from the property tax. Well, I'm going to tell you two quick stories. In Berks County, we have the Highlands at Wyomissing. It's a nursing home. Last year, they appealed their assessment. They won the appeal. It's going to amount to about a $250,000 reduction to the Wyomissing School District. In Upper Marion School District in Montgomery County, there's a large GlaxoSmithKline facility. GlaxoSmithKline appealed in 2008. They were granted a reduction in their assessment. It was fought by the Upper Marion School District. The suit was finally settled in 2010. It's going to mean a loss of $2 million a year to the Upper Marion School District. Even worse, because the appeal was first filed in 2008, it was made retroactive, and the school district had to rebate $4 million to GlaxoSmithKline. These are just two examples of what's going on all over the state with assessment appeals. Businesses started it. Individual taxpayers have caught on and are asking for assessment appeals and seeing a reduction in their assessment and therefore a reduction in their taxes. There's two effects from that. First of all, the schools lose revenue. Second effect, how do they make it up? By raising taxes on everybody else. Now, to get on with it, what the plan calls for is total elimination of the school property tax, the local school earned income tax, and all the rest of that basket of Act 511 taxes for all entities in the taxing bodies with one specific exception that I'll get to in a minute. There was a lot of arguments in the past from the Democratic side of the House saying that we shouldn't eliminate for businesses, that we should do it for homesteads and farmsteads only. Two problems with that. First of all, homestead, farmstead, the clause in the Pennsylvania Constitution says you cannot tax at unequal rates in the same taxing body, the uniformity clause. By trying to tax businesses and homesteads at a different rate would require a constitutional amendment. That's anywhere from a 3 to 5 year process. We cannot afford to wait that long. But second, we've done a lot of research with businesses in Pennsylvania. Now, at the signing of the budget last year, there was also a bill signed to finally finish the phase out of the corporate stock and franchise tax, which I guess is a good thing. But 80% of employed people in Pennsylvania outside of government are employed by small businesses. The phase out of the corporate stock and franchise tax helps big businesses, okay, does nothing for small businesses. We've surveyed extensively small businesses. We've gotten the same response from almost all of them. Say, first of all, they're afraid to expand or afraid to hire because they don't know what's going to happen with the pension spike. Property taxes are so uncertain. It's their second biggest fixed expense. It's hindering the expansion of business in Pennsylvania, and they have told us if you get rid of the property tax, we'll be more than willing to hire more employees and expand our businesses without the fear of that property tax hanging over our heads. So we're saying eliminate for everybody. It's a simpler thing to do, and it helps the people who make jobs in Pennsylvania. Total elimination to be phased in over a 2-year period. Year 1 at enactment, property taxes are frozen at their current level. Year 2, the property taxes go away completely, with an exception. To tell you what that is, one of the problems we had before in trying to get this bill passed was that people in frugal districts complained that they didn't want to have to pay taxes to pay off high-rate debt in school districts that had overspent. Philadelphia being the prime example, they carry a tremendous amount of debt, and I can't say that I blame people for doing that. I helped Jim Cox craft this bill, and one of the things I discovered while doing research was that North Dakota is going to have a referendum on the ballot in June to eliminate their property taxes, and they came up with a really brilliant idea. Leave long-term debt with each one of the school districts. Leave just a remnant of property tax, enough to meet the annual debt service until that debt is paid off and the property tax goes away completely. Statewide, the average is 10% of a school district's budget goes to debt service, meaning for most districts, 90% of the property taxes would go away at the end of the second year. The rest would go away completely when their debt is paid off. Worst case scenario statewide was one district with 18%. 9 districts in the state carry no debt, and they would see their property taxes go away completely. This solved 2 problems. It got rid of the political argument about frugal districts having to pay for the spendthrift districts, and at the same time, eliminated the amount we had to make up by $2.3 billion. So it was a really good move. So that is the one part of the property tax that will remain. Total elimination of school board taxing ability, with one specific exception. School boards will no longer be able to levy taxes on you, period. Now, the one exception, and you can't leave the school boards twisting in the wind. There are legitimate reasons where they need extra funding. The exception we've given them in this bill, a no exception referendum, taxpayer must approve every one of them for a local earned income tax. If for some reason they feel they must have it for ongoing expenses, fine, put it to the taxpayers, but they must renew that referendum every 4 years to make sure it doesn't go on forever once it's voted in. The other exception is for special projects, something like new school construction or major renovations. If they decide to go to the taxpayers for it, it has to state the purpose of the project, the cost of the project, the amount of tax to be imposed, and a definite sunset date for the tax. This is the only tax they will be allowed to levy on you, and only with your permission. So the school board is going to have to make a strong case to the taxpayers before they're going to get approval for it. Stabilization of school funding. I already told you about what has happened in Upper Merion, in Wyomissing. Also, I forgot to mention the Sunoco Marcus Hook refinery and the Conoco refinery in Delaware County that is shut down, meaning the loss of jobs, people moving out of the area. What's the school district down there that is currently in bankruptcy? Somebody help me. I'm having a brain cramp here. No, not Chester, and I want to say Chichester, and that's not right either. School district down there is currently in bankruptcy, is asking for a bailout from the state. Part of it is due to the closing of the Sunoco Marcus Hook refinery, because they're losing residents and they're losing the taxes from that refinery. What we're trying to do with this plan is stabilize that school funding, and this does that. You don't have to worry about assessment appeals lowering revenue anymore. There's going to be a fixed amount of income going to each school district, and that's going to help solve a lot of problems. The last thing was to establish realistic limits on K-12 spending. With an average increase of 6.25%, it can't go on forever, and I'll tell you how we do that. Said the elimination tax swap must be tax revenue neutral for a couple of reasons. First of all, to keep it fair to the taxpayer, but second of all, Governor Corbett has signed the Americans for Tax Reform No Tax Increase Pledge. So he won't sign this if it isn't tax revenue neutral. I've seen the numbers, I've worked with the numbers, it is absolutely a dollar-for-dollar swap and does not increase overall taxes. What it calls for is a moderate expansion of the sales tax base. Pennsylvania is fortunate to be able to do this. Our sales tax base is very narrow compared to many other states who tax almost everything. We know it's going to happen eventually, and if you remember, Governor Rendell said when he was still in office he wanted to expand the sales tax base then for more general fund revenue to spend like crazy. We know it's going to happen. Let's use it for a good purpose. So first of all, the plan expands the base of the sales tax to more items and services. It will include things like landscaping, haircuts, movie theater tickets, magazines, sporting event tickets, and the two that generally draw the most gasps, well, I'll tell you why they shouldn't. Sales tax on any food not on the WIC list. For those of you who are not familiar with the WIC list, it stands for Women, Infants, and Children. It's nutritional food. Anything on that list would not be taxed. Anything else that's canned or packaged. WIC list is generally fresh meats, produce, dairy. Anything that's not on that list would be subject to the sales tax. Any item of clothing greater in value than $50. So basic stuff, underwear, shirts, pants, socks, would not be taxed. More expensive stuff would, including those $175 Nike Air sneakers. General reaction I get to it is, no, you shouldn't tax food and clothing. Let me tell you how it works. Take your current property tax bill, divide by 0.07. This is how much you're going to have to spend on newly taxed items and services to equal the amount of property tax eliminated. Quick example. If your school property tax bill is $3,500 a year, you would have to spend $50,000 a year on newly taxed items and services to equal the amount of property tax eliminated. My response to it is generally, and there's always a lot of fussing and fuming over, what's going to be included in the tax base? Senator David Argall, his wife says, you can't tax shoes. Okay, well, maybe she likes to buy shoes, but so what? I mean, when you come right down to it, as long as your tax bill is lower under this plan, what difference does it make what's added to the tax base? Increase the sales tax rate to 7% from the current 6%, and an increase in the state income tax from the current 3.07 to 3.99. Also, as part of the mix is the current Act 1 gambling revenue. It's about $780 million a year, which in the great scheme of things is not a lot of money because we're looking at replacing about $15 billion. But still it helps. We're not going to need it anymore, so why not use it for a good purpose? All property tax replacement revenue is to be placed in a segregated lockbox account, and I always hear groans from that one too, because we know about the Social Security Trust Fund. There's nothing else we can do. I mean, it's the best we can do at this point to have it in a segregated account so it doesn't get commingled with the general fund and spent elsewhere. Whether it holds up, we have to see over time. Best we can do at the moment. If by some reason we should accrue a fund balance, lower the rate of the personal income tax. Generally accepted wisdom on fund balances is anywhere from 8 to 10%. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. We're saying maximum 6%. Anytime the replacement revenue fund hits 6%, you lower the personal income tax to make sure it constantly stays tax revenue neutral. Now the other side of the equation, driving it out to the schools. In Sam Rohrer's School Property Tax Elimination Act, which by the way is the basis for this, we looked at Sam's plan very carefully, chopped out the stuff that was unnecessary, tried to simplify this as much as possible. Sam's plan really had a grand idea for financing all the schools in Pennsylvania that included rolling the basic education subsidy into the plan. It drew a lot of fire. A lot of targets were drawn on it to shoot at it. So we looked at it and said, how can we make this fair, at the same time simple, without looking at social engineering or socioeconomic factors? The way it works is, initially, all school districts are fully funded for the total amount of local taxes eliminated. Dollar for dollar, they get it all right back. That funding in each district will be divided by their average daily membership to establish a per pupil funding level in each district. At the end of the first year, you go back and you look at that district to see if there's been a change in population, student population. If there has been, and there's got to be a trigger level for this, you can't do it for 5 students, but let's say there's a 50 student change in population. Their per student cost is multiplied by the change in population, and they lose that much in revenue. If they've gained population, same thing. Per student cost multiplied by the gain in population, they gain that much more in funding. This is in total contrast to the current 1991 funding formula that keeps everybody getting the same relative amount of money forever. Second part of the equation is the annual review. Well, I mentioned that. Go ahead, Janice. Annual funding increases. Annual funding increases are going to be limited to the increase in the consumer price index or available revenue, depending on which is less. So if the revenue increase is 3% in the year, every school district gets 3%. Again, no silly funding formulas. Everybody gets a percentage across the board. End of story. But this way, school funding keeps pace with economic activity. You're not going to see the huge increases in school expenditures like you do now, because what it boils down to is you can't spend more than you have. If the revenue isn't there, they get whatever revenue is available, and that's the end of it. There will be a slight fund balance accrued to allow for any down years in the economy. Let's hope it improves, like they say it's improving, and that won't be necessary. Go ahead. Supplemental school funding, I can skip over this because we already talked about that. Go ahead. Sam tried to integrate his plan with the current basic education subsidy. We looked at it and said, that drew a lot of fire because the basic education subsidy is subject to a lot of meddling, both from the legislative and executive branches. And we've seen it with lots of funding going to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Mid-state gets far less. The legislators don't easily want to give up that sandbox that they're playing in. So we said, let's look at this strictly for replacement of the school property tax. Forget messing around with the BES. Let's just get this done. Leave the BES for the legislature to do what they want to. So the legislation is implemented for the replacement of local school district taxes only and not incorporated in any way with the BES. Jim has already introduced this legislation. It's concurrent legislation proposing a constitutional amendment to forever abolish property taxes as a school funding source. Anything enacted by statute can be unenacted by statute, and so can HB 1776. We're saying, let's do the constitutional amendment and forbid it forever so they can't come back to it. HB 1776 has been vetted against actual and estimated revenue and expenditure figures supplied by the House Appropriations Committee staff. Last time we looked at the numbers was December 1st. Some of the legislators who opposed this bill, this happened with Sam's bill, are going to tell you, oh, the numbers don't add up. That's been the biggest excuse we've heard all along, the numbers don't add up. Well, I've seen the numbers and they're current, and I guarantee you they do add up dollar for dollar. If you hear that, it's nothing more than an excuse from somebody who's trying to oppose this legislation. Go ahead. Oh, one other thing I'll mention. Geez, almost forgot that. Steve Chronister. There was a piece in the New York Daily Record a few weeks ago where he said that he is going to support the elimination of school property taxes. Found that very interesting. He didn't talk about any of the county and municipal taxes. He talked about school taxes. He has managed to pull the Adams County commissioners on board with this idea. Christian Leinbach of the Berks County commissioners had jumped on board with him, and I haven't seen anything more on it in about 2 weeks. But apparently the man is going to work for you guys and try to get this done. What a huge way to put pressure on the legislature when you have all the county commissioners pushing for this. So I don't know your feeling. I mean, I'm not from York County, so I don't know your feelings on Steve Chronister, but I think on this particular issue, he deserves a vote of confidence in you guys. Okay, 10 reasons to eliminate the school property tax. As you leave tonight, there's some handouts back there on the table. The 10 reasons are on there. along with a brief synopsis of how the bill works. Please pick one up, and I'll mention right away, too, there's some sign-up sheets back there for the PTCC email updates list. I send out updates only as necessary. I will not spam your inbox. And of course, I will not release your address to anyone. If you sign up for the updates, I'd really appreciate it, because it will keep you informed of what's going on and ways you can help. But let's look at this. First of all, achieve true home ownership. You never really own your home as long as it can be taken from you for non-payment of property taxes. You're just paying rent to the government. This gives the home back to you where it belongs. Number 2, stabilization of school funding. Already discussed it. I don't even have to go into that. Help prevent foreclosures. People have said to me, well, a lot of people who are in trouble with their mortgages got that way because they were irresponsible. They took on a bigger mortgage than they could afford. Okay, that may be, but the fact is, every time a house is foreclosed, it hurts our economy. In some cases, a mortgage payment, 50% of a mortgage payment can be property taxes. I was told this in Monroe County last week. There are people up there who have a $1,000 mortgage payment. Half of that is a school property tax escrow. What happens with foreclosures if you get rid of that monthly school property tax escrow? How many more people are going to be able to afford to stay in their homes? How many fewer foreclosures are we going to have? Number 4, restore plummeting real estate values. Because the excessively high property taxes, homes in some areas have become very difficult to sell. I gave Monroe County as an example. This is going to make the housing market go crazy in Pennsylvania. It's going to increase the value of homes, and going to number 5, boost the housing market. We saw it ourselves with our son about 5 years ago. He and his wife wanted to buy a house that could meet the mortgage payment until the real estate agent worked out the $400 a month property tax escrow. Sorry, they couldn't afford it anymore. They eventually got their house. But they waited. And how many other young people do that? How many other young people are unable to afford to buy a home simply because of the add-on of the monthly property tax escrow? You get rid of that, what would it do for the housing market in Pennsylvania? And I'll let you figure that out. Go ahead, Janice. Number 6, attract business to Pennsylvania. I've already mentioned to you about the polling we've done with small businesses. But businesses in general are eager to come to states with low tax rates. We've seen it in the South. So many businesses are locating in the South. We can't attract business to Pennsylvania because of our tax rates, most particularly the property tax. And consider what we do now. How many of you know what a KOZ is? KOZ stands for Keystone Opportunity Zone. It's targeted tax relief, property tax relief, to attract businesses to certain areas of Pennsylvania. Most recent one and most outstanding one was Cabela's in Hamburg. Tried like crazy to get Cabela's to come here and gave them a 10-year property tax abatement to draw them into the state. I'll give you another example. EA Games, located in Chester County a few years, well, more than a few years ago, I guess it was about 15 years ago. They're a software manufacturer. They were given a 10-year property tax abatement to locate in Chester County. To the day, check it if you don't believe me, to the day that the abatement ran out, they left Chester County, got out of the state completely. Point of it is, with the KOZs, the state is willing to pick winners and losers, who they'll choose to come to this state to generate business. Why do we want to do that? Get rid of the property tax, make the entire state a KOZ. Welcome businesses to come to Pennsylvania, establish themselves here, employ our people, and boost our economy. Generate jobs for Pennsylvania. If you bring businesses to Pennsylvania, you're going to generate jobs as well, and we certainly can use them. Number 8, create a massive stimulus for Pennsylvania. School property taxes in Pennsylvania for homesteads and farmsteads only amount to about $10 billion a year. Put that money back into the hands of taxpayers to spend or save or give away as they wish. And watch what happens to Pennsylvania's economy, and it snowballs. You get that money in your pocket, you go out and spend it, you generate more sales tax revenue, and help the plan work better. How many of you, if you had that $3,000 or $4,000 or $6,000 a year back in your pocket, would go out and spend it? I know you would. What would that do for Pennsylvania's economy? Increase personal wealth. A home is normally a family's largest single investment. With increased home values and no property tax escrow to pay, you're going to enjoy a significant boost in personal wealth and be able to save some money for a brighter future. And finally, stop costly reassessments. This doesn't get rid of this reassessment process because you still have the county and municipal taxes left, but it's the largest part of the property tax burden. Roughly 2/3 to 75% of property taxes are the school property tax. The rest is the municipal and county. It's a huge step toward getting rid of the rest, and the beauty of this is, by broadening the sales tax base, it's so powerful that with a 1% surcharge, county surcharge on the sales tax, and up to a 1% earned income tax, you can eliminate the property tax for all municipalities and all counties in the state and get rid of this system forever. And how much money would you save by no longer having the assessment system, the tax collectors, and all the ancillary stuff that goes with it? Best part of this is it's a clean bill. There's very little legislation that comes out of Harrisburg that doesn't benefit someone. Special interests, another politician. Absolutely. This bill is unique in a couple of ways, and that's the fact that Jim Cox has worked with the taxpayers on crafting this bill. There is nothing in this bill that benefits anyone except the homeowners and the school children of Pennsylvania. We've been very cautious about I feel privileged. We've been very cautious about what's been put in this bill, and I really feel privileged that I've been able to work so closely with Jim on this and make sure that everything in here is the way it should be for the taxpayers. You're never going to see this come out of Harrisburg again, I don't think, because Jim is just really good about it. A lot of times when I've given this talk, I've heard afterwards, I hope that they'll do something about it. Oh, good luck, I hope you can do it. They, meaning the politicians in Harrisburg, aren't going to do anything. Not unless they're forced to, and this is not a top-down movement, this is bottom-up. This is as grassroots as it gets. And we're the ones putting the pressure on Harrisburg, and that's one of the reasons I'm here tonight, to try to convince you, if you like what you've heard tonight, then I want you to be proselytes for this. I want you to get out there and tell your neighbors and your friends and your relatives and anybody else about this and ask them to get involved and help us get it done. As far as I hope that you can do it, I can't do anything. We've got to have you, all of you. And if you like what you're hearing, then please get involved. Sign up for the updates, go to the website, read about it. True education finance reform can be done with your help. And I would appreciate any help you can give me. You know, I forgot to mention one thing, and I really got to mention this. I skipped over it in my notes here. Anybody know what the largest single industry in Pennsylvania is? Agriculture. So many farmers have told us, and again I'll go back to Monroe County, so many farmers have told us that they are selling off little bits and pieces of their land every year just to be able to afford the property taxes. Monroe County, a woman told me 10 years ago her father owned 400 acres of Christmas trees. He's down to 100 acres now because he can't afford the property taxes anymore. We are killing Pennsylvania's largest industry with this tax. And worse, it's by a death of 1,000 cuts as these farmers sell off a few acres every year just to pay this onerous tax. And I'm sorry I regressed, I just had to get that out. So, the other thing I'll ask is, if any of you are on Facebook, we have a PTCC Facebook page, a lot of active discussion there, and if you want to join that, I'd appreciate that too. So, one more thing, I'll be giving this talk 2 weeks from tonight for the Adams County 912 Patriots. If you have any friends who you feel should hear this talk, please send them out there. Jeff Trish asked me to mention that. It's Thursday the 16th at 7 o'clock at the Cross Keys Motor Inn on York Road in New Oxford. Anybody have any questions? Okay, I saw your hand first. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Here you go. What's the probability of success in your proposal and in RH 1776? And I was hoping to see a graphic that showed all the legislatures and which ones are for it and which ones are against.
Well, at this point, since the bill has not been introduced yet, the bill will probably be introduced sometime in the next 2 weeks. Jim has been fighting with the Legislative Reference Bureau since the middle of November. The LRB is the group that actually writes the legislation. He sends it over to him, he gets it back, there's mistakes. He tells them to correct the mistakes, they send it back, he has more mistakes. I don't think it's intentional. They're just not getting it right. And I was in Harrisburg last Wednesday. I saw the bill on Jim's desk. It's about 190 pages because it rewrites a good portion of the sales tax code. That's the bulk of it. He had about a dozen Post-it notes sticking out of the side of it more corrections to be made by the LRB. But I'm sorry, I'm getting off track there. A lot of legislators have said they won't sign on to it until they see the language. Jim has said, come to my office. I'll go over the bill with you page by page if necessary. I'll show you the numbers. I'll show you the sales tax exemption, tell you everything you want to know. Still, they're making excuses. We'll know when the bill is introduced when we see who the co-sponsors are. Right now, I can tell you there are 40 co-sponsors in the bill, 32 of them are Republicans, 8 are Democrats. Something else I forgot to mention, the bill is also going to be introduced in the Senate, same language, by Senator David Argall. He already has 9 co-sponsors on that one, 3 Democrats, 6 Republicans. Now, to answer your first question, since 2004 I've been working on this. This is my full-time unpaid job. I am just absolutely passionate about this. My workday starts at 8 o'clock in the morning and ends at 10 o'clock at night, and this is all I do. Since 2004, I think our best chance is right now. And I truly feel if we don't get it done this time, we're not going to get it done. We've built tremendous public support for this. We have tens of thousands of supporters across the state who are putting pressure on their legislators. The mood in Harrisburg is to get this done because these legislators are telling the leadership, we got to get this done or I'm going to lose my seat. And they're really scared of what's going to happen in this year's elections. GOP leadership in the House said they will do something about property taxes this year, and I can't believe they're going to go with a local tax shift option because they're going to get hammered for it after what happened with Act 1. To answer your question, I think right now is the best chance we have ever had. I am cautiously optimistic that we can get it done. I think the House is going to probably pass it. The Senate's going to be a bigger challenge because of Senate Majority Leader Dominic Pileggi, who is somewhere beyond the orbit of Saturn. I don't know where that man is hanging out. But we have 6 taxpayer groups in his district, and he's up for re-election this year. So he's going to be feeling the heat, and maybe that will help us in the Senate. In October of 2010, I spoke to Jen Branstetter. Jen Branstetter is Governor Corbett's policy director. She told me at that time, now we didn't get this from Corbett, we got it from her, but she told me at that time that if the bill makes it through the General Assembly and gets to his desk and is tax revenue neutral, he will sign the bill. I'll give you one more thing that happened last week. The reason I was in Harrisburg was because Jim and I met with 3 of the governor's advisors. His legislative liaison, his finance guy, and one of his policy people. We were with them for about an hour and a half. What I explained to you tonight is something they didn't realize. They thought it was the whiny blue hairs complaining about property taxes. They didn't understand the depth of the problem. By the time we left, they did. The purpose of the meeting was to try to get the governor to make this a policy initiative during his budget address on February 7th. I understand Jim and 5 other legislators are going to be meeting with him again before that time to discuss it further. We'll see on February 7th whether or not he does it. I think he's foolish if he doesn't, but he is aware of the problem, and if he does, that's going to mean a lot toward getting it done. So I'm sorry I expanded so far, but does that answer the question for you, sir?
Yes, sir, and thank you for your efforts.
You're very welcome. Yes, sir.
What's the union's
Surprisingly, you would think the PSEA, the State Education Association, would be a natural opponent of this bill. Ever since it's been around in 2004, the PSEA has been silent. I don't think we'll ever see them come out and support the bill, but Sam and I talked about this on a number of occasions. His theory, and I agree with it. We've seen what's happened over the past year or so with teacher layoffs, and every time there's a teacher layoff, the PSEA loses dues money. One of the facts I mentioned here was the stabilization of school funding. PSEA is smart enough to know that the school districts are in trouble. This plan will stabilize funding to the schools, save jobs, and save the dues coming into their Harrisburg headquarters. That's why we think we haven't seen any opposition from the PSEA. We have seen opposition from people like the theater owners, who are okay charging $15 for a movie ticket but don't want to charge 7% tax on top of it. Pennsylvania Bar Association last time out complained about it because they said you shouldn't be charging tax on legal services. Well, the bill doesn't call for tax on any domestic legal services, on criminal defense, none of the things that are really necessary. We're not saying a sales tax on that. What they're concerned about is that they said, oh, it's going to hurt poor people because they're not going to be able to afford legal services. No. It's going to hurt the high-powered clients who pay monthly retainers, and those are the ones they were protecting, no matter what they said. So they also opposed it. School Boards Association opposes it. Heaven forbid the school board should lose the ability to tax at will. So the PSBA opposed it last time. I think you're going to see a lot of opposition crawling out of the woodwork. Anybody whose product or service is going to be subject to the tax is going to complain about it. We have one big advantage this time. We have a lot of people behind this bill. And yeah, the politicians may kowtow to the special interests in their campaign money, but we have the power of the ballot box. And be guaranteed we're going to exercise it this year if we don't get what we want. And we have to let the politicians know that's the way we feel. You do this or you're gone. I'm sorry. Anyone else? Questions? I saw another hand over here somewhere before. Yes, sir. No, wait, repeat that again. I want to get this straight. If it passes this year. Yes. If it passes this year, property taxes are frozen immediately. Property tax bills come out, 1st of July, I believe. So if it would pass before the 1st of July, that bill would be frozen. Yep, absolutely. The effect is immediate. If it's passed after the current property tax bills go out, then it will be pushed off to 2013. Oh, no. It calls for immediate freeze as soon as possible, and then the second year goes away. Again, except for that small remnant to service debt. Anyone else? Yes, sir. I saw yours first. Go ahead.
What is the attitude of those legislators that are living in disproportionate areas of Pennsylvania where the taxes are much lower than the minority unless they're paying more? So how are they, what are they dealing with?
They like to say that, yes, we don't have a problem. I don't have a problem in my district, so why should I vote for this? Fact is, virtually every homeowner in Pennsylvania benefits from this, and it's simple economy of scale. We currently have 3.2 million homeowners in Pennsylvania carrying most of the load. Renters do pay part of the property tax, but proportionally not nearly as much as a homeowner. 3.2 million homeowners. With this, 12.7 million residents plus visitors are all contributing. Virtually everybody in the state will see a reduction in their overall taxes, and we're trying to get that point across to them. If you go on the PTCC website, there's a calculator on there. It was developed by Rick Ritter of our Coatesville group. He's CFO for Cumberland Insurance. Really bright guy, knows numbers, knows taxation. He wrote this Excel calculator. You plug in your income, where the income is from. It even accounts for the fact that you'll no longer be able to deduct property taxes from your 1040. Plug in your income, plug in your current school taxes, it tells you what it's going to do for you. The only people who would not benefit from this are those with extremely high incomes and extremely low property taxes. And I don't see that as being a big combination anywhere in the state. The other point we're trying to make with the legislators you mentioned is that it's time to get rid of your parochial thinking. Yes, you have to represent your constituents, but you've got to think of the bigger picture and what's happening to Pennsylvania in general. And maybe for a change, instead of trying to just please your 40,000 constituents, think what's best for this state and the future of this state. And we're trying to make that point with them right now. I hope that answers your question. Yes, sir. No, we have not. Can't answer that question. I think it very definitely would. I think absolutely it would. And again, the PSEA has not said anything. It'd be nice to get them on our side. If they would actively come out and support this, that would be a huge boost for us.
Dave, can we wrap it up?
Absolutely. May I take one more question, or shall I quit right here?
Can you sort of urge them to action?
Okay, one more question. Yes, sir.
About stabilizing expenses where they are now, school expenses, but how does that address? I mean, we have districts that are very wasteful, and we have very districts that are not very wasteful. So is that wastefulness going to get locked in time?
Eventually, and it won't happen overnight, but eventually it will iron itself out because their increases from this point on are only going to be equal to the increase in revenue. So eventually it will work itself out. But it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen quickly. I have had folks tell me what we should do is equalize per pupil spending in every district in the state. Well, that might be a fine idea in theory. You try to do that, the bill's dead. Okay, and it's far too urgent to try to mess with issues like that right now. So, okay, that's it. Get the big hook, I'm off the stage. I'll be around if anyone wants to talk to me afterwards, and please sign up for the updates. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Dave. We have several candidates here tonight that are running for various offices. I want to give a shout out here to this group over here. Raise your hands. They are delegates running for the Republican National Convention, and they need their petitions signed to get there. There is also, Marilyn, where are you? Marilyn is also running for the convention as, to be a delegate, so please consider signing her petition. We're going to give each of the candidates here a couple minutes up at the podium. Ed will put up the sign after 2 minutes and 45 seconds, and then stop is we're putting the kibosh on you so we can get people signing petitions. I have to tell you, petition signing is a laborious process. Sandy here is, I was out the other day for 4 hours, and I got 20 signatures. 4 hours next day, got 12 signatures. It is time consuming. These candidates need your help. So in addition to making sure you sign everybody's petitions tonight, please offer your assistance. If you can get them 10 signatures, if you can take a petition to work, whatever you can do to help them out, I'm sure would be deeply appreciated. This is what it's all about. This election is going to mean everything. Those that are in have obviously done a pretty lousy job. This is our opportunity to get them out. So please help these candidates do that. First up is Kelly Henshaw, who is running for the 94th District.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm fighting a cold, but we'll keep on moving here. Yeah, Kelly Henshaw. I'm from Red Lion Borough. I'm presently the Borough Council president there for the last 2 years, and the 94th, for any of you that are here, includes Chanceford, Lower Chanceford, Fawn, Windsor, Lower Windsor, Peach Bottom, Hopewell, North Hopewell, East Hopewell Townships, boroughs of Delta, East Prospect, Fawn Grove, Felton, Red Lion, Windsor, York Anna, Crossroads, Winterstown, and Stewartstown. Now that was the list when I left the house. It might have changed. I'm not sure. I am running to make some big changes. The gentleman, David, that did such a great job. Back when Kathy and I bought our home, my property tax, not sure what it was, but my mortgage was $700 a month. And right now, my tax is $500 a month. I used to joke that when my house is paid for, I'm just going to shift my bank payment to my school district payment. I was joking, and I'm sorry I was joking because it's coming true. And I want to eliminate property tax. I want to eliminate the career politician. And I'm running against Stan Saylor. He's up there 20 years. I think it's time for his term limit to come due. I'm pledging to my constituents that I will take no more than 5 terms, and that's 10 years, and I will not take the pension. That's why they're up there. That's why he's there 20 years. Another big problem we have, I'm going to tell you about some borough problems. Prevailing wage, $25,000. Prevailing wage was put into effect, I believe, in the 60s, and it stays at $25,000. We just did a project, a half a block, stormwater inlets, and a pipe across the road. It was $65,000. So this is, our folks want our streets paved. We got to fix what's underneath first. So it's a real big problem for us. And Pennsylvania needs to be a right-to-work state. Why do you think these companies aren't coming here? All the automobile companies are down south. Why? Because they're right-to-work states. I also will not take any pay raises or cost of living adjustments to my pay. I'm going up there to do a job. I'm not going up there to be a career politician. I'm over here where the big sign is. Any of you folks that are in my district, I sure could use some help with petitions. Thank you so much.
A reminder too, when you sign petitions for a Senate candidate, you can only sign one. And for a candidate for the federal Congress, you can only sign one, and whoever, you have to be a registered Republican to sign, if they're Republicans. Okay, and how many? 4 delegates, right? And I am also running as a delegate. I didn't mention that. Okay, next up is Dan Johnson for the 92nd District.
Well, thanks. I want to say thanks, first of all, for doing your civic duty and being involved in an organization like this, not just in an election year, but for the long term, ongoing. The second reason why I want to thank you is this is my hotel. I work here, I manage it, so it's always nice to have you, come out and play host, and so nothing else. Thank you on that front. I wanted to ask you, is there anyone here from the 92nd District, where I'm actually coming from? It's a little far north, but in any event, it's Dillsburg, Fairview Township, Newberry Township, that kind of big arc, roughly. Well, the message that I had was geared to those individuals, but it's one I think is broad and it kind of grows across regardless of where you are. I've been in hospitality for 19 years, and in that period of time, created a lot of jobs, fixed hotels. It's amazing how much a hotel can go south very quickly, but finding the right people, putting them in place, turning things around, always focused on the community because we're here for the long haul. But at the end of the day, from beginning to end, what it is that we do is we take care of guests, we take care of people. We make sure that whatever issues come up, whatever they may be, we address them and we fix them, so that by the time you leave, you're happy with the service that we give you and there was value for what you paid us to do. My thought is in government that we can translate that same basic mantra into government service, that you become a conduit, a voice of the people, but at the same time you do so with 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you use them in that proportion. It's a very novel idea, I know. Somewhere along the way, however, we decided that we would start looking for candidates who had 2 or 3 things that kind of met what it was that we liked. We supported them, they get into office, and then all of a sudden we get disappointed when they really just don't do what it was we expected them to do. Over time, indifference and apathy set in, and before you know it, there's polarization, and we find ourselves where we are today. But it doesn't have to be that way. What happened to representation at its finest, where you found someone who would listen to what your needs were, you took them on the local, state, or federal picture, and then they brought information back to you, and they represented you with their vote. Very simple, novel concept. It's my hope to have a chance to serve and to do a few things, as mentioned earlier just a few moments ago. I have no interest in a pay raise at all. You send me there to do a job, that's the job I'm going to do, and the pay is the pay. I have no interest in 401k or pension plans. I don't have one here. Hotels are notorious for their pay. Not interested. You shouldn't have to pay for me long term after the fact either. And it's my intention never to serve that long. I'll do you one better. I'll go a little bit less, 3 terms, 6 years, a little bit more than a governor. Federal senator, fine enough, good for me. And if I can't do it in that period of time, the stuff that I want to do, if I don't represent the people in my area that well, then I need to go and I need to make that decision on my own. No one needs to make it for me. I'm out of there. No career politics for me. It's my hope to get enough petition signatures. If you know people in my area, great, please let them know about me. If you're not in my area, don't give up. There are good people that are out there. Listen to what they have to say. Stay involved, not just in this election year, but for the long haul. So thanks for coming out.
Ernie Marasotis for the 93rd District.
Okay there. I'm Ernie Marasotis. I'm running in the 93rd District, which is basically York Township and South Jacobus. I have a map over here, and according to the redistricting committee, we're back to the old 93rd. So if you're not sure if you're in it or not, I had to check for myself, and so there is a map there. I have 3 handouts for you. One is on the Pennsylvania state pension liabilities from the Commonwealth Foundation. One is the gentleman just spoke. I have some more of those in case you run out. And I also have one here about the PSERS. This directly affects our property taxes. And if you look at this on the back here, it says basically it's gone from, this is what your school district puts toward the teachers' pensions. It's gone from 4.78% to 5 to 8. Next year it's going to be 12. It's going to be almost 30% pretty soon here. And this is the latest information from their website for you to look at. Briefly, just want to talk about where I stand. Number one, I'm for the elimination of property tax. First off, it's time for it to go. It's absolutely time for it to go. And every single politician that doesn't want to support this bill ought to hear loud and clear from us in this election. We need to just throw them out of office. Either they're going to back it or they're gone. And quite frankly, I want to speak about the incumbent that I'm running against, Ron Miller, who didn't know about House Bill 1776. You know, he voted for the 50% pay raise, the pension raise. He was one of the ones that co-sponsored that bill when it started this big mess. That has, he's been there when it comes to looking at things from his perspective. He voted for our taxpayer-funded pension raise. He's been leasing a vehicle at taxpayers' expense. I pledge to you, and I've already signed this, that I will not take the state pension, that I will not take the state vehicle. And if I just have time just to take the time out of the Pennsylvania State Constitution, Article 2, which deals with the legislature, Section 8, the members of the General Assembly shall receive such salary and mileage for regular and special sessions as shall be fixed by law, and no other compensation whatever. That's what it says. That's what the law says. And yet we have a representative that is representing who? That's the question. I'm Ernie Marasotis. The information I said is right over here. And if you'd like to talk to me later, I appreciate your help. Thank you.
If we could wait and sign petitions until all the candidates are done, because when there's a lot going on, it's hard to hear them, if you don't mind. Just a few more. Joe Stafford, who's also running for the 93rd.
Thanks, everyone. Good evening. It's a beautiful day in Pennsylvania, is it not? Yeah. Anyone know who made that phrase famous? Yes. Pete Wambach. I arrived in, my name's Joe Stafford. I came to Pennsylvania as a permanent resident in 1973. I worked for a large company, and I worked up in the Harrisburg area, and I listened to Pete Wambach on the radio, and he talked about the features of Pennsylvania that just inspired me to check these things out. Pennsylvania is a beautiful state. It's my home state now. I am all for Pennsylvania. I want to, address you now as a candidate, and I'm going to shock you a little bit because this was an impromptu visit to this group. I'm running as a Democrat. There are some good Democrats out there. I am very conservative. I want you to take a look at my record and take a look at my views, and I will, if I am successful as a Democrat, I am going to be a very conservative representative for the 93rd District. Now, I've lived in York Township since 1977. I worked for that large company I mentioned before. I've traveled all through South Central Pennsylvania. I've been in most of the big businesses, small businesses, school districts. I ran a small business servicing wheelchairs, scooters, and products for the disabled in this area. I've been in homes. I've been in institutions. I have a real feel for the kinds of people that live in South Central Pennsylvania. Now, the last speaker gave you a good description of where the 93rd District is, but basically it's Ron Miller's district. For a long time, for the last 11 years, I've been involved with a small nonprofit advocacy organization. For the last 11 years, I've been very nonpartisan. I had to be. But you know what? Just like you, the reason you're here this evening is there are just things that need to be done that aren't being done. And I am here, if I am successful, to be your representative in the 93rd District, those things will be done. I do have, and I know I have to give you the elevator speech, I can talk for a long time on a lot of subjects, but basically I do have 3 areas of concern to me. Transportation. It hasn't been mentioned this evening, but transportation is so critical to Pennsylvania. It's certainly critical to York County. It's like the old ad for the Lung Association. If you can't breathe, nothing else matters. Well, if you can't move, nothing else matters. It affects schools, it affects business, it affects you in your daily lives. Transportation is a big deal with me. I do have some suggestions on how we can get transportation funding. I work now with PennDOT. Believe it or not, I work a lot with the General Assembly on those issues, and those things are the things that are important to me. Marcellus Shale, that hasn't been mentioned yet that I know of. That's a big deal with me. I'm getting flagged. My last topic is education reform. And the only thing I'm going to disagree with on your speaker, Mr. Baldinger, is the misuse of the word property tax. I would have some issues with this presentation. Let's talk about school taxes. When you roll it into property taxes, you're being somewhat misled. I have a lot of suggestions and ideas about school reform, and it goes directly to addressing the budgets. We're going to roll back those budgets. How we do it with property tax it is a whole other issue. I thank you very much. If I'm successful, I will represent those who vote for me, those who don't vote for me, and those who don't vote at all.
So if you sign Joe's petition, make sure you're a registered Democrat, please. Next, Dan Bradley, who is running for the 196.
Where's Ed hiding? Ed, you can't count the applause time against me, all right? Because there's going to be a lot of it, all right? Oh, man. All right. I do want to say something first, though, before I begin my prepared remarks, is when Mr. Baldinger was talking about the basic education subsidy, I thought that really hit home for my message. He basically said we needed to keep that in there so that these politicians would vote for the 1776, because it was kind of their bribe money to say to their constituents, look at the money we still have for you on the side. And that really is the problem. And I'm going to wear these just to make me look like a statesman, not like an old, yeah. So anyway, I just want to let you know I'm running because I am not a politician. I'm a school teacher, and I'm really tired of these career politicians who go up there, just like my opponent in the 196th, they go up there to make a career. Anybody who wants to have a career in politics should not be in office, and that's really why I'm running. Our founding fathers designed a system that was meant for citizens to represent us, okay? We don't have that anymore, and we need to start doing that. We need to work together to put citizens in office. Somebody who is a politician does not deserve our vote. In fact, I cringe when I hear politicians say we're public servants. Seriously, give me a break. I mean, we have our men and women in the military. Those are true public servants. Our police, firefighters, true public servants. And then politicians want to call themselves public servants. I don't think so. But you know what? It's a real shame that we feel that way, because we shouldn't. We should have a system where we can respect our elected officials, and that's why I'm running. Okay? We don't respect our elected officials because really they take advantage of the system. Okay? They use our tax dollars to maintain their position. They really, in many ways, they buy their reelection with our tax dollars. Okay? They take from one of us and give to another group in order to gain favor with that group and get reelected. That is what needs to be stopped. Okay? They honestly believe that if you want to serve the people, you need to first serve the party. And that needs to change as well. I honestly believe that if you are in office because of loyalty to the party, then you cannot be trusted to be loyal to your principles. And that's, okay, stop the clock. And as Beth said, gathering signatures to get on the ballot is painstaking. It's time-consuming. And it's meant to be that way because they don't want regular citizens to be on the ballot. They have the party machines to take care of that problem for them. And that's another thing that needs to be changed. And that's why my first order of business would be to make changes to the election laws so that we can get a true citizen legislature. That's step number one. We also need to reduce the size of the legislature, reduce their pay, reduce the size of legislative staffs. I know they just came out with House Bill 153, reducing the size of the legislature. But remember, it's an election year. Okay? Good talking points. That will disappear, I guarantee you. They're going to say, this is what we're doing, but it's going to get brushed under the rug once the elections are over. So anyway, my name's Dan Bradley, running in the 196th, running as a citizen, not as a politician. So I know there aren't a whole lot of 196ers here, but if you know people in that district, I'd appreciate you sharing my information with them. Thank you.
And Seth Grove, he is a product of Republican Party breeding. They have taken him right out of college and bred him for office. So please, if you can support Dan, please do. Steve Johnson, 15th Senatorial District. You're not? Oh, I'm sorry. Andrew Shaw, 31st Senatorial District.
Well, good evening. Thank you for having me down here. I come from all the way up in Carlisle. I am part of the 31st District, and we get a little bit of York County. Who knows how much at the end of the day. But for now, the 31st District includes in York County, Carroll, Fairview, Franklin, Monaghan, Warrington, and Washington townships, boroughs of Dillsburg, Franklintown, and Wellsville. So that's why I'm here to introduce myself to York County. And it's a pleasure to see some familiar faces. I'm running in the 31st District to be the true conservative option for our state Senate, both on fiscal and social issues. Our state government has grown too big. It's spending way too much. It's way too intrusive, and we need to limit that. I stand on the principles of limited government, of individual rights, and of lower taxes. And those are the principles upon which I would be serving the 31st District. 4 points to make. I'll take the Corbett tax pledge, no tax increases. School choice, important to me, ultimately because it's not just about where our children go to school. That is extremely important, but even more important is the ultimate issue of the parents having the say in their children's education. Where does my child go to school? That is what school choice ultimately is even more important about. Third, I'm a social conservative, so pro-life and family life values are very important to me, and I will stand for those principles. And lastly, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. We need to put a cap on spending. A very good way to do that is to limit spending with a combination of the growth of inflation and population growth. Let's stop the skyrocketing spending that Harrisburg is entering into and has been for the last decade plus. I support term limits. I'll not take the pension. And my philosophy, our greatest days for Pennsylvania are ahead, but we have to choose that. Let's move forward that direction. Thank you. I'm the 31st District, and I'd be happy to meet anyone that is a resident there tonight. Thank you.
Next on our list is Jason McNew. He's running for the 193rd District. He couldn't be here tonight. I just want to give him a little shout out. He is running against Will Tallman, who has been up there for quite a while. So if you live in that district, over there where the delegates are, they have a petition for Jason McNew. And please go to his website. He writes articles for the American Thinker. I'd really like to see what he's going to do. Ted Waga for Congress for the 4th District.
Now, I know you said we have 3 minutes, but Scott, right before you left, told me I got 15, so I don't know. I do want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank everybody who signed my petition already, as well as those who are circulating them. I know you're doing a lot of hard work. We have reached the 1,000 signatures threshold, but we're going to keep pushing forward to hit our goal of 2,500. Now, I know a lot of you may know me already, but there are some first-timers, so I want to do a quick background of who I am, why I'm running. I'm 38 years old. I'm married to the same woman for 16 years, and I have 2 beautiful daughters, 15 and 13. They go to Red Lion School District. I'm a police officer with Baltimore County Police Department going on 14 years. Currently hold the rank of sergeant. on the list for lieutenant. I command the Baltimore County Auxiliary Police Team. Been there for 4 years. The team has grown from 29 members to 70 members. I attribute that to strong leadership, teamwork, and dedication. Currently, I serve as the president of the Homeowners Association where I live. I was elected to that position a year ago. At that time, we were $5,000 in debt. The community was in decline. In less than a year, we've paid off the $5,000. We have $14,000 in reserve, and we've made a lot of improvements to the community. Again, strong leadership, teamwork, and dedication. Finally, I am a Christian, and most importantly, I'm a Christian. And I say that not to say that I'm perfect, but to let you know that I will be guided by Christian morals and values, which is sorely lacking in Washington today. I ask you, would a man of good moral character borrow and spend his family into debt and bankruptcy? If you answer that question honestly, it's no. Would a good, strong leader of good moral character borrow and spend his nation into bankruptcy? The answer is no. I'm running because I saw the direction our country was headed in. I saw the vote on August 2nd. I could no longer stand by while our country was driven over a cliff into bankruptcy. I have 2 daughters. I want to see them grow up in America that I grew up in, not one that is bankrupt. I have a grandfather who's deceased and a father who's deceased, but both served in the military. I have a brother who's 17-and-a-half-year veteran of the U.S. Army. I did not want to see their service go in vain because our country was running to the ground. I could no longer stand by while our leaders destroyed this nation. My message is very simple. It's reduce, repeal, restore. Reduce the size and scope of government, reduce the spending, and reduce the debt. Repeal onerous legislation and stifling regulation that's crushing our economy to restore liberty, freedom, prosperity, and power back to the states and to the people, not to the federal government. I, too, have committed to limiting myself to 12 years. I will self-limit myself. I will not take a pension. I have 15 seconds, so I've got to be quick. One of the things you're going to hear from all the candidates for Congress, we're all going to say the same thing: smaller government, less spending. What sets us apart? I got into this race 4 months ago when Congressman Platts was still running. I got in because I care about this nation. I love this nation. I knew what my chances were, but I knew I had to do the right thing, regardless of the sacrifice I had to make. I did not get into this race because I saw an opportunity when he decided to retire. I got into this race because I care. And you'll notice that I'm the only one here that's running for Congress. Now, I can't speak as to where the other candidates are. I do know that the Adams County GOP committee is hosting a Lincoln Day dinner tonight. I was invited to that. However, I didn't choose the party, I chose the people. And I hope that you choose me. I ask that for those who haven't signed my petitions, please sign my petitions in the back. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Okay, thanks for coming. Please make a statement against the Republican Party by rallying against the endorsed candidates. You don't want Governor Corbett picking your candidates for you and then strong-arming the committee into endorsing those candidates. Please, 4 delegates, 4 alternates, and please sign petitions. 1 senator, congressman, and your representative. Thank you.